Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. 2020 was a historic year for BYU. The Cougars went 11-1 with their best finish in the AP poll since 1996. 10 of their 11 victories were won by double digits, including a 49-23 victory over UCF in their bowl game. But don't expect a repeat of all those things in 2021. So again, guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here to predict BYU's record and schedule for this 2021 college football season. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, including signing up for our brand new expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. Go give it a look over on thegridironexpert.com. So guys, we take a look at BYU. Again, they were one of the best teams in the nation last year. They were so dominant up front, had one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Zach Wilson. 11-1, dominant bowl victory, only lost by 5 on short notice on the road to Coastal Carolina. Everybody was so hyped and now believes that BYU can repeat that in 2021. And the fact of the matter is that's not the case. They're not going to be able to replicate that success. And here's why. We start on the roster and we look at the offense. BYU loses the most. BYU loses the most offensive production of any team in the country. The most offensive production of any team in the entire country. And that starts with Zach Wilson, the star quarterback that was taken second overall in the NFL draft. So they have to replace their quarterback. They have to replace their wide receiver in Dax Milne. Had over 1,000 receiving yards, 1,188 reception yards, and 8 touchdowns. They have to replace 3 offensive linemen, including Brady Christensen, who only allowed 1 sack. All these big-time starters are leaving, and yeah, you would expect BYU to take a step back when you realize they threw for over 330 passing yards per game and had over 500 yards per game last year. They're not going to be able to live up to those numbers again. They have a brand new quarterback, might be Baylor Romney. He seems to be the favorite, but very well could be Jaren Hall. Both have seen time on the field, so whoever's under center will do just fine for Kalani Sitake. Tyler Allgeier is back at running back. That's the huge get. He rushed for over 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. But outside of that, they're going to have to build chemistry with some new wide receivers, and they're going to need some more help up front after losing 3 of their big men. When you look at their defense, only 4 starters are back. To me, the defense is a bigger concern than that of the offense. This team allowed 15.3 points per game last year, just 317.4 total yards per game. So one of the best defenses in the country. But one area that's concerning for me for BYU is the fact that last year, despite their great defense, they ranked just 65th in the country when it came to sacks, averaging just 2.17 sacks per game. Their leading tackler, Isaiah Kaufusi, will be back. That's huge, obviously. Their linebacking core of Peyton Wilger, Keenan Pili, and Max Tooley will have to lead the way as well. Those are their 4 big playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to need the rest of them to step up if they want to try to keep those numbers relatively similar. All that being said, let's take a look at BYU's schedule. Another major reason they did so well last year, not to take anything away from the job that Kalani Sitake did, was their schedule was very favorable. They didn't play any big-time Power 5 opponents. There was nobody there compared to what the schedule looks like now. So 11-1 was a very favorable schedule. Now they open up with 3 straight Pac-12 teams. Factor in a road game at Baylor, a road game at Washington State, Virginia, so 3 more Power 5 teams, and then ending with USC. Over half their schedules against Power 5 opponents, guys. Not to say that BYU can't hang, but it's nothing like this team saw last year. So they open up the season against Arizona in Las Vegas. What a way to kick up the 2021 season. What a way to kick that off. And when you look at Arizona, guys, they've got a long ways to go. They just fired Kevin Sumlin, rightfully so. Wildcats went 0-5 last year. So they have a brand new head coach in Jed Fish. The Wildcats, more than likely, are going to be starting a freshman quarterback, unless they decide to go with Jordan McLeod, the transfer from USF. But when you look at this team, guys, 12 starters back, one of the worst defenses in the country last year. New coach, new schemes, not a whole lot of offensive talent. Arizona arguably could be the worst team in the Pac-12 in 2021. And I think BYU takes advantage of that. The Cougars will win in Las Vegas. They kick off the year at 1-0. They come home, their first legit home game in week 2 to take on Utah in the Holy War. And this is one of my favorite rivalries in all of college football, guys. I think it's one that doesn't get as much attention as some of the other big-time rivalries. And so we look at BYU and Utah here. This is a Utah team that started off very poorly in 2020, but won their final 3 games. A couple games where they actually trailed by double digits, came back, and then won by double digits. Well, now the Utes returned 10 starters on offense. They landed a transfer quarterback in Charlie Brewer from Baylor, one of the more highly touted and highly sought-after transfers last year. They returned 8 starters on defense, one that ranked 11th in the nation against the run last year, allowing us 107.8 rushing yards per game. Now, I know this game was in Provo, but I would venture to say that Utah owns the offensive edge. I would definitely say with Kyle Whittingham, they own the defensive edge, especially with all that talent coming back. The one area I don't think that Utah owns the edge here is home field advantage, and it's still playing in their own state. I think BYU drops this game to their in-state rivals. The Utes are going to return to form. They're going to be Pac-12 South contenders again in 2021. BYU drops to 1-1. They then take on Arizona State, week 3. And look, I will say that depending on what happens with Arizona State with all these recruiting violations, that could very well determine and affect our prediction for Arizona State. Very well could come back and affect our prediction for this game. Because it's not looking very good for the Sun Devils right now. I think the hammer is about to be laid down on them very soon by the NCAA. But we don't know that yet. So we're going to go with what we believe will happen if nothing were to happen at all. So the Cougars take on the Sun Devils, a team that went 2-2 last year, but averaged 264.2 rushing yards per game in those 4 games. A team that has one of the better quarterbacks in the country coming back in Jaden Daniels behind a very strong offensive line that's paving the way for a very potent rushing attack. And then an Arizona State team that has 8 on defense from the #1 scoring defense in the Pac-12 last year. Anything less than a South crown, a Pac-12 South crown for Arizona State would be viewed as a disappointment. This is the team that can get it done. And a loss at BYU in week 3 isn't going to give them the warm, fuzzy feelings as they go into Pac-12 play. Arizona State, again, I believe owns that quarterback edge. They own the edge up front. They're going to own potentially the rushing edge, even though Tyler Allgeier is going to be the workhorse on offense. And I believe that Herm Edwards and the Sun Devils have what it takes to come into Provo and win this game. That's exactly what they're going to do. BYU 1-2 in their first 3 games. Of course, though, better than 0-3. 3 Pac-12 opponents to kick off. I do believe they're competitive in all 3, but they only win 1 of them. The schedule lightens up slightly the next 3 weeks. They conclude September with a game against South Florida, USF. I think Tyler Allgeier has a field day in this game, and BYU wins big. When you look at the Bulls, they were 1-8 last year, new head coach themselves, but they allowed 212.3 rushing yards per game. They have quarterback questions left and right. They'll get there maybe next year, maybe the year after, but the Bulls are not going to be much of a competition for anybody. And that's the same for BYU. That is the case for BYU against the Bulls. It will not be a competition. BYU runs away, literally, with this game. They then travel to Utah State. I'm going to mark it up as another win for BYU. Utah State went 1-5 last year. All 5 of their losses were by at least 19 points. It was so bad last year that Utah State, well, actually Gary Anderson stepped down, but then Blake Anderson comes in, so trading an Anderson for another. Blake Anderson comes in from Arkansas State to become their new head coach, but they've got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of work to do to the point where I don't think they're going to have enough to beat BYU. I mean, you look at this. They're going to be playing Boise State. First off, Utah State plays Boise State the week prior. Could have that Boise State hangover. Their offense only averaged 15.5 points per game. Their defense allowed 224.7 rushing yards per game. So another opportunity for Tyler Allgeier to absolutely go off against an inferior defense. And another game where BYU, to me, absolutely owns the offensive edge, even though I believe the Aggies will get there with Anderson being the offensive mind that he is. But not in year 1. BYU wins big. They return home to take on Boise State. Now, that's going to be a game that's circled on everybody's calendar. Circled on BYU's calendar, certainly circled on Boise State's calendar. Yes, the Broncos have a brand new head coach in Andy Avalos coming over from defensive coordinator from Oregon. BYU beat Boise State 51-17 last year on the Smurf turf. But if you recall, again, nothing to take away from BYU. That was a flawless performance. And that was the moment that if there were any doubters of BYU last year, those doubts were thrown away after the win against Boise State. Yes, I know Boise State had some quarterback issues in that game, some injuries, and they weren't starting Hank Bachmeier, guys like that. But BYU would have won that game, I think, regardless. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. Bachmeier is back at quarterback, fully healthy. If he's not, they still have Jack Sears. Khalil Shakir is back as one of the best wide receivers in the Mountain West. I put him up there as one of the better wide receivers in the country. 8 starters are back on defense for Boise State, and there is revenge on their mind. Boise State has the talent again to go back to the Mountain West Championship game, this time win it. They fell to San Jose State last year. They have the talent to be a dark horse contender for a New Year's Six bowl game. All the talent is there. And again, I think you look at all the guys coming back from Boise State, everything that BYU lost, revenge is a dish best served on the road, I would say. And I do think Boise State comes on the road and gets this win over the Cougars. BYU then travels on the road themselves. They take on Baylor, team that went 2-7 last year but had 3 one-possession losses. So they were better than their record showed. Obviously, they were dealing with a brand new head coach in the midst of COVID, injuries left and right. Give Dave Aranda cut him a little slack, give him some time. Year 2 comes around, things should be a little bit better down in Waco. 14 starters back, including 9 on defense, and that's the number that I've circled. Because this team as a whole will improve drastically. The defense especially will improve drastically. Baylor, despite going 2-7, had the 30th ranked passing defense in the country. So I don't know if BYU, whether it's Jaren Hall under center, whether it's Baylor Romney under center, I don't know if they're going to have much success throwing the ball down in Waco. And I believe Baylor wins this game at home. It's a very difficult place to play. Things are going to change for this Bears team because, again, they're going to have a normal year under their belt. And in a game that I think is relatively low scoring, a game where it's defensive led from both teams, I think Baylor gets the job done. BYU drops their second straight. Boise State hangover, possibly. They then travel to Washington State, to another Power 5 team, another one out of the Pac-12. These Cougars went just 1-3 last year. And now they're entering year 2 under Nick Rolovich in that run-and-shoot offense. And I got to say, he's got the talent to succeed there. He's got Jaden DeLora back. He's got Max Borghi back at running back. Plenty of guys that can really continue to implement his style of play. Washington State's downfall last year and their downfall this year is their defense. Allowed 38.5 points per game in those 4 games. Allowed 307 passing yards per game. That was 24th in the nation. A week after maybe struggling through the air, BYU will have no issues through the air in Pullman. And I believe they beat the Cougars and return home for the Bronco Mendenhall Bowl as they take on Virginia. You remember, Bronco Mendenhall used to be the head coach at BYU. Left that job, took the Virginia job, has done extremely well there. So a bit of an emotional game for both sides, I would say. When you look at Virginia, Brennan Armstrong is back. I put him in the middle of the pack of quarterbacks within the ACC. This offense has the capability to return to form after struggling at times in 2020. The defense especially is one that's going to improve. 7 starters back for the Cavaliers after having the worst passing defense in the ACC last year. So again, this could be an opportunity for the Cougars to light it up through the air. But I believe that the secondary is going to improve drastically for Virginia. And I believe Bronco Mendenhall wants nothing more than to get a victory over his former team. This is one of those games that to me was a truly difficult game to pick. True toss-up game. But we're going to go with the Cavaliers in this one. A team that I think has a little bit more offensive consistency. And one that I think whose secondary improves just enough to get the job done in Provo. BYU drops this game. I believe they beat Idaho State. They get their bye week on November 13th. One bad thing on BYU's schedule, the fact they have to play 10 straight games before getting a bye week. So they're going to be wearing thin closer and closer to November 13th. Maybe wearing thin against Virginia, maybe even Washington State. Not ideal. They get their bye week, though. They conclude the year with 2 road games at Georgia Southern, at USC. At Georgia Southern is one of those intriguing matchups. It's a long way to go for BYU to play a Sun Belt school on the road. Second straight year that they're going to be doing that. We know Georgia Southern, they run a dangerous triple option attack. This is really going to test BYU's defense. But I like that they get that bye week right before this game. They're going to have a whole week of prep to prepare for the triple option, something that they really probably will not see until this point. No other team on their schedule is going to run that type of offense. So I believe giving Kalani Sitake and this defense a whole week to prepare for that, they will go on the road and shut down Georgia Southern. They will win against the Eagles. They conclude their year at USC, another team that, like Arizona State, is a favorite in the Pac-12 South. They'll have one of the best passing attacks in the country, led by Kedon Slovis, and their defense under Todd Orlando improved drastically last year. Remember, USC went 5-0 before dropping the Pac-12 championship game to Oregon last year. The Trojans need a big year for Clay Helton. I think he will deliver somewhat. Not as big as some think, but deliver just enough. One of those wins that he will deliver on is the home game against BYU. I'm not sure if the Cougars can stop this passing attack of Kedon Slovis, and I certainly don't think their offense can keep up if it turns into a shootout. USC wins the season finale. BYU finishes 6-6. Now, I know for many you'll disagree with that. You'll think it's ridiculous. But again, I look at their schedule. I don't see where there's any toss-up games, guys. I believe Virginia was a toss-up game. I believe you can make a case that maybe they split Utah and Arizona State. Maybe even Baylor if you want. I think 7-5 is the best case scenario for BYU. Maybe 8-4 if you want to push it. But this team is not going to put up the same numbers they had last year. They're not going to have a double-digit win season that they had last year. When you lose the most offensive production of any team in the entire country, a step back is expected. It's going to happen. But this is still a bowl team. This is still a well-coached team. BYU will be back in the postseason and have a chance to improve drastically on this win total going into 2022. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. And of course, guys, make sure to check out everything down in the description below, including our brand new expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Make sure to go give those a look. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.